Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you to this webinar. Enactment of laws by regulators must be backed by efficient implementation for ensuring compliance thereof. Compliance reporting mechanism acts as a conduct which ensures that all applicable rules and regulations and standards are adhered to and implemented coherently, realizing the need of making governance professionals more vigilant and updated of the growing compliance reporting mechanism around the world. In true letter and spirit, the Institute of Company Secretaries of India has come up with the third session in EEE 4.0, the Master Knowledge Series. And today's topic is the Annual Secretarial Compliance Report. Today, to deliberate on this topic, we have none other than CS Devendra V. Deshpande, the former very dynamic president of ICSI and a practicing company secretary by profession. He has more than 20 years of experience. To set the ball in motion, I would like to have the privilege of reading his brief profile in front of all our learned participants first. Shri Devendra V. Deshpande is the fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India and a postgraduate in commerce from the Pune University. His area of practice is in the fields of corporate laws, foreign exchange laws, audit under the company law and allied laws, secretarial audit of listed and unlisted entities under the Companies Act 2013, advisory in corporate restructuring and creation of secretarial data rooms as a compliance module for multinational companies. He has been involved as a consultant in activities related to fundraising, SME IPOs, debt listing, etc. He has been the Vice President of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India for the year 2021 and the President for the year 2022. He was a nominee director on various subsidiaries of the ICSI, and he is currently acting as the Director of ICSI International ADR Center, Governing Council member of the ICSI ADR Center, Chairman of the Auditing Standards Board of ICSI. He is a member of two committees constituted by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs for amendment of the rules in the year 2024. He is acting as an ESOP trustee in one of the MNC NBFCs. He has been a jury member for the awards of many organizations like the International Corporate Governance Network, ICGN, and the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industries. He has deliberated upon various contemporary topics in more than 200 national and international seminars and webinars. He has been a guide and a lecturer at Crime Investigation Department, Economic Affairs Wing for the training of its officers. He is the first company secretary to receive the Youth Icon Award 2019 in the field of corporate affairs from the Purnavad Yuva Forum. Now, that's a very big achievement. It is our proud privilege to have him as a speaker in today's session, and we benefited from his words of wisdom and his experience in the arena of annual secretarial compliance report. Let us now welcome him to the third session of EEE 4.0 Master Knowledge Series, and I wish all the participants will have a very enthusiastic learning experience. You may start, please.
Thank you, Banjana. Thanks for that introduction, and I'm really happy to be part of this EEE series. I remember the hard work which we did at the time of introduction of this EEE series, and I really compliment you and all council members, including our president Narsihan ji and Dhananjay Shukla ji, our vice president, for continuing this particular EEE series. And actually, this is one series which is helping a lot of members because it is always on the contemporary topics, and there are a lot of changes which are happening in the corporate world, and therefore these updated series sessions definitely help members to raise their questions and discussing various aspects of changing environments. Maybe there may be change of laws, change of formats, and a lot of things are happening around, and we all are facing this change scenario. In this change scenario, I think this EEE series is going to be very beneficial, And I really compliment Manish ji, because he is our immediate past president, because he is a CLGC chairman, and under CLGC this particular program is conducted. And I think he has now crystallized the time also. So every Wednesday, I think we are organizing this Triple E series, and to make it in a systematic manner on a weekly basis, one topic for discussion. And even the timing is very, very apt, wherein the annual secretarial compliance report has to be issued within 60 days from the closure of the financial year. So I think all in all, this is a wonderful initiative by our institute, and I'm really happy to be part of this. I will share my presentation, and then we can start our discussion. Just give me a minute to.
Just before you start, I would like to mention this to our participants that we will be taking questions. Please send us your questions, and I would prefer, like, we can take up the questions at the end of the session to cover those things that have already not been covered during the session. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, it's absolutely fine with me. So I can
Thank you.
questions in between also, but that's fine, because we can take it at the end, because we would be.
You would have covered a lot of things by then.
So maybe we will be left with very few questions at the end. And if there are any questions, we'll definitely discuss those. So my screen is getting shared. Just a second. I just shared the screen so that we can. Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, just a second. Yeah, so I think let's start this particular topic of annual secretarial compliance report. Whenever we talk about compliance report, I think every company secretary who has been there for, say, since 2000, everybody knows that in 2001, the first compliance report was introduced under MCA, wherein few of the points related to company law compliances were covered specifically. And we were supposed to issue this compliance report every year, and that has to be a part of director's report. That is the journey of this annual secretarial compliance report. So I think we are looking at one compliance report for SEBI related laws. And the journey actually started in 2001, when Ministry of Corporate Affairs actually gave us the recognition by allowing us to issue compliance certificates and compliance reports for the Compliances of Companies Act. And later on, we continued that under MGT 8 also. The secretarial audit is something which is very close to us, and which is one of the biggest audit which we have so far. And that is so compliance report is the base for all these further recognitions we got. Our professionals have done a wonderful job in complying in certifying certain compliances under corporate laws. So that is especially under Companies Act. And later on, the professional have evolved themselves, and we are not only certifying company law now, but we have been given this important assignment of issuing annual secretarial compliance report. And this is a unique recognition wherein only company secretaries in practice are allowed to issue this kind of certificate. So I think this is a responsibility given by SEBI, and they have trust on our profession and our professionals, and therefore this responsibility has been given on us. And that's what I think is the most important point, which I wanted to share it with you in the beginning, before we start discussing the actual basic concepts in the annual secretarial compliance certificate or report. So this annual secretarial compliance report was introduced on 8th February 2019. So understand that before this particular ASC was introduced, the company secretaries were doing secretarial audits, and they have been doing the secretarial audit from 2014 onwards. So 5 years we were doing secretarial audit. Secretarial audit definitely covers a lot of points which are also covered in annual secretarial compliance report. But as you are aware that secretarial audit is a very wide certification which includes 3 points. I think last Wednesday itself we had a detailed EEE session by our very own Ranjit Pandey, our past president, and I think he has deliberated very well on these. What are the contents of secretarial audit? So I will not get into that, but definitely secretarial audit is a very vast audit which we conduct. Normally, we conduct these audits on a concurrent basis. Annual secretarial compliance report is a concentrated effort of the professional to certify the SEBI-related compliances by the companies and non-compliances by the companies in respect of SEBI laws and rules and regulations framed thereunder. So I think this was a unique thing which happened wherein another regulator other than the Ministry of Corporate Affairs authorized us to issue a specific compliance certificate. So this is a non-financial audit which we are conducting for various companies since 2019. So we have been issuing these reports for last 5 years, even though the formats have changed a lot during these 5 years and the contents have changed, the approach has changed. And now I think all the compliances in respect of SEBI laws also have undergone a lot of change. So I think we are working towards making the companies fully compliant. We are trying to help companies into having a complete compliance, not in terms of only the letters, but also in terms of spirit. So I think this introduction of this annual secretarial compliance report is a very good step by SEBI, as well as this will also have its roots for other regulators like Competition Commission. Last year, I think our institute has done a lot of things in respect of competition law and Competition Commission and getting recognition from them. We have tried to have a governance code under Competition Commission. Under labor laws also, our institute is working a lot. So soon there will be a lot of other regulators who will come into picture and they will say that, okay, we want a certificate from a professional and he should certify that whether the compliance of our regulations have been done properly or not. So this is the basic concept with which SEBI introduced this in 2019, and I think it was a very very wonderful move for our professionals. And I think in last 5 years our professionals have really geared up themselves, and now we are doing a very good job in certifying this annual secretarial compliance report. Basically, this is one basic introduction about this circular. But I think that there is a lot of debate which goes on in the corporate world, whether we should be well governed or whether we should be well regulated. So if we look at the LODR provisions also, the chapter 2 talks about principles of governance. We have also studied every time that we should be well governed. But at the end of the day, what happens, unless there is a support from some regulations, we don't comply. So that is one thing which happens many of the times. So it is a balance between what is well governed and what is well regulated. So most of the times, that is why these laws and regulations are changing quite often, because earlier the regulators had this particular thought process that we will be giving the principles, and on the basis of principles, companies on their own should disclose the things. They should be transparent because they are well governed. But slowly they change their perspective from being well. They want companies to be well regulated as well as well governed. So they backed up these requirements of disclosures by various regulations. I think the July 2023 amendments to LODR, I think we have seen a complete change of stands. Like earlier, we used to disclose the things which we used to feel material and which are very important. Now there have been a lot of events which have been specified irrespective of the value, as well as there are few materiality concepts brought in by the SEBI to make ourselves as well regulated as well as well governed. the entire purpose of making these SEBI laws strict or making these disclosures strict and timely is protection of the basically those retail investors who are not well informed about each and everything, and where they don't attend earning calls, they don't go to the proxy advisory reports, and just by going on the BSC or NSC website, they would be able to understand that what is happening in the company. So I think all these changes which happened in LODR or the SEBI related laws and its disclosures is to protect are for the protection of these retail investors, and it's a welcome move. And we all company secretaries are really doing a very good job in making these changes aware to the companies and board. I think the 2023 amendments have brought a lot of system changes in the listed entities. Even recently, I was listening to one of the press release, or I was reading one of the press release wherein our President Narsihan has specifically mentioned that regulator is of the view that we would be requiring a lot of company secretaries in years to come, and may it be in employment or in practice, but there is a dire need in capital market for company secretaries. So I think this kind of certifications will definitely add value to the companies, as well as companies would be actually doing what they are required to, and we will be actually certifying. So let's discuss what are the complexities in this, because I have been talking to a lot of company secretaries from listed entities, and they are really stressed because it might be a very big company having a lot of branches all across India or all across globe, and there might be one or two incidences of some fine or some order of some penalty or some warning letters getting issued to the company, and regulation 30 requires you to submit that particular thing within 24 hours. So I think such things need to be again informed to the board. The board need to frame one very good system in the company so that the compliance officer is not under stress, and he is able to comply with the requirements of SEBI. And these things definitely are going to change the perspective of the management towards compliances. And once this particular annual secretarial compliance report is kept before the board, they will get to know that what are different compliances which are applicable and which we have not complied, or we have failed to comply, or what is the improvement which is required in our system. So I think this annual secretarial compliance report is going to be very important in terms of our profession and years to come. Now, if we see the difference between secretarial audit report and annual secretarial compliance report, is secretarial audit report is a very large set of certification, and it looks after only the material events or material non-compliances. So for example, if one outcome of the board meeting is not submitted within 30 minutes, it has been submitted within, say, 45 minutes, after 30 minutes. So that is not a material event when we talk about secretarial audit report. But when we talk about annual secretarial compliance report, it's a non-compliance and it has to be reported. So I think there is a lot of difference between secretarial audit. Your institute has already issued one manual on secretarial audit, as well as one guidance note on an annual secretarial compliance report. So I think, and on 10th May, I think just 5 days back, the institute has also issued a draft format for annual secretarial compliance report. So I think institute is trying their level best to help professionals. Now it's professionals' duty to understand what is secretarial audit report and what are the contents of annual secretarial compliance report, and accordingly give their certification. So I think it's a win-win situation for the professionals, for the company, for the institute, for SEBI to understand what is going on. And I think this entire matrix of the information which is going to the regulators is going to help them to understand whether there is a foreseeable fraud or anything which may happen. So I think this information is getting collated at one place with the stock exchanges and with SEBI. And I think the regulators have become really very strict nowadays, and they are asking for even they're asking the reasons of a delayed submission, even if it is delayed by 10-15 minutes. So it's a very good thing as far as professionals are concerned, or the SEBI is concerned, because there should not be an intentional delay in submission of the documents or information to the public. So at the end, all these information and documents are going to public. So it is going to help the investors to understand where the company is going. So I think it's a wonderful thing to have such kind of unique certification for our company secretary friends. So it is going to help the company secretaries in practice as well as company secretary in employment. So this is the basic difference between the secretarial audit and annual secretarial compliance report. I think as a company secretary in practice, I had been in practice for last 20 years now. And the one point which I wanted to tell all our practicing professionals is you should be aware that what is the system of uploading the documents on stock exchanges website. So on BSE and NSE, there are different set of documents which company uploads, and they are into different formats. Few things are required to be submitted in PDF, few things are required to be submitted in XBRL mode. There are XBRL utilities, and earlier there were only 10-15 XBRL utilities. Now if you look at that particular XBRL utility, you will find that there are around 50-60 different XBRL utilities which a listed entity is required to inform to the stock exchange in XBRL mode. So I think you should be aware about the process. So whenever you are doing a secretarial audit, try to attend the board meetings, and after the board meetings, try to be present or have one of your representative present when the company secretary or the compliance officer is uploading these documents, so that you will have the full 360-degree view about how the compliances take place and how the uploading is done and what is the time which is recorded for the uploading. So this is going to be very important for all practicing company secretaries. The next point is this particular annual secretarial compliance report has to be submitted to the stock exchanges within 60 days from the end of financial year. So from 31st March 2024, the last date would be 60 days from 31st March 2024. So we'll have to submit this on both the stock exchanges. This has to be submitted in PDF as well as in XBRL mode. So last year, actually, we submitted the PDF file within 60 days. And so if you are doing an annual secretarial compliance report for this year, you need to check whether the PDF and XBRL both for the last year have been submitted within time. So last year, the time limit was 60 days for PDF and before 30th June for XBRL, because XBRL was introduced later. So I think we need to know about all these things. And this year onwards, we'll have to submit both the documents simultaneously, PDF and XBRL. So within 60 days. And there is always a question whether 24A2 certificate, that is annual secretarial compliance report, has to be part of the annual report or not. So there are different timelines for different things. So I might have my board meeting on 15th of April, and I might have the annual secretarial compliance report getting prepared on 30th of April. Both are within the time limit. So I think there is no specific requirement of having annual secretarial compliance report in your annual report. So secretarial audit report will form part of your annual report, but annual secretarial compliance report will be addressed to the board, and the board will take note of it and they will upload it on the stock exchanges. Or these annual secretarial compliance report are open for inspection to general public. So this is the basic concept about annual secretarial compliance report. If any queries there, Rupanjana, we can take it, or otherwise at the end we will take it. That's not a problem.
I haven't received any queries yet. I was just checking that only. So maybe we can
Sure.
continue for a while and wait for any questions.
Sure.
There are none yet.
Yeah, no problem. So we have discussed that what is the basic concept and why this particular annual secretarial compliance report came into picture and how practicing companies secretaries are supposed to work on it. So I think the requirement of this particular certificate is to examine and report the compliances of various SEBI regulations. So in this draft, which has been shared by our institute as well as in one of the circulars, SEBI has also issued one draft last year. If you go through that, there are SEBI regulations, the list of SEBI regulations, as well as there is a list of different points on which we need to specifically comment. So we will discuss all those regulations, all those points when we go ahead and when we discuss about each and every point in the certificate. At that point, we will definitely discuss this. So this is based on the examination which you do, and you will have to report the compliance of various SEBI regulations. So it is not that you have to prepare one compliance calendar and just print it in the certificate. It is other way around. You need to find out what are the non-compliances which have happened during the year, and you will have to give it in a tabular format. And the contents of that table also we will be discussing later. But this is what is expected from company secretaries. They need to examine everything. What they need to examine is the website of the company, the documents, records. That also we will see that what we are supposed to do. Then, if in respect of applicability, this particular annual secretarial compliance report is applicable to all listed entities. So it does not talk about listed companies. So those, for example, PSU banks, they are listed, but they are not companies under Companies Act. So such entities are required to have this annual secretarial compliance report. Yeah, and as you all are aware, Regulation 15 specifically gives an exemption from applicability of regulations. So Regulation 16 to I think 27 are not applicable to certain type of companies or entities. And this annual secretarial compliance report comes under 24A. So I think there is a circular issued by SEBI that three type of entities will be exempt from annual secretarial compliance report. One is the company which does not have 10 crores of capital. It is not turnover, it is capital. I think there is a typo. And 25 crores of net worth. So if there is a listed entity having capital of less than 10 crores and having net worth less than 25 crores, they are not required to take an annual secretarial compliance report. SME listed entities are not required to take any annual secretarial compliance report. And debt listed companies, if they are not a high debt listed companies, and I think the definition is very, very clear now. If the debt, the debentures which are listed are not beyond 500 crores, then these companies are not required to take annual secretarial compliance report. Otherwise, every listed company, every listed entity, even if it is a PSU listed bank or such kind of entity which is listed but not a company, still it will be required to obtain this annual secretarial compliance report. So, and that has to be taken within 60 days from the end of financial year. Next one is about signing. So this particular signing thing also has been specifically mentioned in our UDIN guidelines, as well as the format which has been issued by our institute. So name, firm name, peer review number, membership number, CP number has to be there. And after 1st April 2022, the annual secretarial compliance report for any entity can be issued only by a peer reviewed practicing unit. And what is the limit for that? So now the limit is 10. So earlier the situation was, if you are not peer reviewed, you will have a limit of 5. And if you are peer reviewed firm, you will get 5 additional certificates per partner. So the limit was 10 certificates per partner or per practicing person. So now the peer review thing is compulsory. So now the limit is 10. So every practicing company secretary will have a limit of 10 if you want to have this annual. Yeah. Any issue? Somebody was talking in between. Okay.
No.
Yeah. So next point is UDIN is mandatory. So unique document identification number, which was introduced by our institute in 2019, and I think all the company secretaries are well aware about generation of a UDIN. The UDIN has to be generated on the date of signing, or it can be generated 7 days in advance. So you need to have the UDIN on every annual secretarial compliance report. This UDIN has to be within 60 days from the date of end of financial year. So UDIN requirement is mandatory for annual secretarial compliance report. Yeah. Next one is yeah. So what we need to audit or what documents we need to examine is the documents and records which are made available to us and explanation provided by the compliance officers. So now what kind of documents we need to check? That includes all the documents in respect of meetings of the board, because you must be aware, board and committee as well, because you need to understand whether the board is in compliance with the requirements of LODR, whether the committees are constituted properly, whether you have independent directors, whether you have women independent directors for a specified class of entities. And you need to go through the entire minutes for that particular financial year. You need to go through all the notices issued. You need to go through all the documents related to board meetings, as well as you may have to go to in the details of few ledgers also. So some financial audit is also required, because for the purpose of understanding the materiality in respect of few transactions, we may have to go to the ledger accounts also. So I think these are the documents and records which we need to check from the company, as well as here the explanations provided is also very, very important, which is a management representation letter. So in this case also, I think you need to take a management representation letter for the things which you cannot check it on the spot. So this annual secretarial compliance report is usually done at the end of the financial year. So you are not aware whether on the website of the company the timely updation was done, or whether the updation was done right before you came for the audit. So you need to take a management representation letter from the company for the things which you are not able to verify. So those things you can verify just on the basis of management representation letter. But other things which you can check it from the documents, you need to check it on your own. So it's not like you can take the entire annual secretarial compliance report in your management representation letter. Management representation letter is very limited to only the points which you cannot check it physically. So because of the different lines, and it's not a concurrent audit as such. So if you are doing a secretarial audit along with annual secretarial compliance report, definitely it will help. So in that case, your management representation letter would not come into picture. Filing submissions made by listed entity to stock exchanges, they are available online. So most of the filings are available online. So I think there is a very good tool on NSC website. I have seen that they have prepared a complete compliance checklist for the submission to stock exchanges. And also BSc and NSC have issued master circulars, in which all the circulars issued in last year have been combined together, and they have issued one master circular. As a practicing company secretary, we should be aware about all these master circulars and the formats in which the disclosures have to be made. So we need to go through all the filings. I think there is one more important point which we should be aware about, that there is a listing center login for each of the company. You as a annual secretarial compliance report or the practicing CS need to go into that particular login. You need to understand whether the compliances are up to date. NSC also gives you a compliance certificate from their end, wherein they can give you the quarterly compliance details that the company was supposed to submit the financial statements within so and so time, and they have submitted within time. So they will give you the dates also. So that particular point you can take help of. And website of the listed entity, you need to go through the website of the listed entity. Any other document and filing. So you need to go through any other document and filing, including the ROC filings, the MCA related filings if they have been done, because you will get to know that what events have occurred during the year, and then you will be able to give a proper report on that. So this is how you need to approach. In this particular thing, I need to give you one very important point, that those who are dealing with this listing compliances and submission of records, I think there is a corporate governance report which is submitted by every listed entity, and it is on quarterly basis. If you go through the timeline for submission is within 21 days. So 31st March 24 compliance certificate of corporate governance would be submitted by the company before 21st April 24. So you are having the privy, you are having the access to that particular submission done by the company. So you need to go through that, because in that there are annual affirmations and affirmations in respect of corporate governance and affirmations in respect of website disclosures. So all these affirmations have been given by the company itself. So you can very well verify those affirmations, but you have the basic data that, okay, this particular thing is on the website of the listed entity at this particular link. So you can go and verify that. So you need to have a complete sync between the submissions made by the company and submissions which you are making. So I'll give you one example. In one of the companies, there was a submission in the corporate governance, quarterly corporate governance report issued by the company itself, the compliance officer, and they mentioned that there is no woman director, but annual secretarial compliance report was clean. So this kind of mistakes we should avoid. We need to adhere to, if company has accepted certain non-compliances, you need to also mention them in your annual secretarial compliance report. So go through all these documents very carefully and then issue your annual secretarial compliance report. So these are the basic things I wanted to share. Rupanjana, any questions we have? So we can
Yes, we have 9 questions so far, and some of them are actually very basic. Some have already been covered, but then like I would just mention them and quickly run through the others.
Yeah.
So the first one is, do we also need to report compliances or non-compliances of subsidiaries of the listed entity?
No, only in respect of material subsidiaries. If there are non-compliances, then you will have to mention it. So there is one point in the annual secretarial compliance report which talks about disclosures of material subsidiaries. In that point, you need to give the details about non-compliances. Otherwise, you don't need to mention anything about non-compliances of subsidiaries.
Okay. Thank you. So the next one is, like LODR, the compulsory requirement of chairman of audit and shareholder committee being present at the AGM. So what if the chairman is not present due to some unavoidable reasons? So do we need to mention this as an observation in annual secretarial compliance report?
Yes, because the thing is, if while conducting the audit, if you understand that the audit committee chairman is not present at the annual general meeting, and that is a requirement of LODR, then you will have to report it. Because if you look at the wording in the report, it says that the company has complied with all the provisions except the following. So even if there is no action which has been taken by the stock exchanges or SEBI, you are required to mention the non-compliances which have happened. So such non-compliances will have to be mentioned specifically.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one we have already discussed, but nevertheless, I'm just mentioning in the annual secretarial compliance report, is it applicable to SMA listed companies? So we have already mentioned that in exceptions.
Yes.
So it's not required.
Yes, it is not required.
Yeah, so the next is can secretarial audit report be different from board meeting date?
From board meeting date. So
yes.
Yeah.
But so, this one is a secretarial audit report.
Yeah, I know, I understand. But nevertheless, I'll just answer this particular point. So there are two kinds of practices which are followed by the companies. One is approval of their financial statements, which is required to be done within 60 days from the end of financial year. So in one particular meeting, they will just approve the financial statements, and in the next meeting, they will adopt the board report and the entire annual report. So in such cases, the secretarial audit report can be after this particular date. The only hitch in this particular process is the auditor is required to give a comment whether the director's report has been complied with regulation with section 134 of Companies Act, whether the director's report is in compliance of section 134. So in certain cases, auditor are taking view that I will check the previous year's director's report because that is within the purview of my audit period.
Yeah.
Few auditors are taking a draft director's report from the board, and they are certifying that the director's report is in compliance with 113. So, and few companies are doing everything on same date when the financial statements are adopted. So, in that case, everything will be dated of the board meeting. The secretarial audit report in that case. Annual compliance report date is indifferent from your board meeting. So it can be any date between 1st April till 60 days.
Okay, thank you. Now, whether report is required to be approved by board in their meeting and then uploaded to the stock exchange, or later it need to be noted in board meeting?
Later it can be noted in the board meeting. There is no requirement of submission of this particular
as an agenda item,
so it will be addressed to the board, but the compliance officer can upload it on the website even before the board takes note of it. There is no requirement of approval of this particular report. It is not mentioned anywhere.
Yeah, so this is a very important point that we should know. Yes. Next is the corporate governance. Corporate governance is required, not required for our company. Is it compulsory to issue report?
No. If the provisions in respect of corporate governance, so from regulation 15 to 27, if it is not applicable to you, then you are not required to submit this. The only thing is for such companies on a quarterly basis, they need to submit one statement to the stock exchanges saying that their capital is less than 10 crores and their net worth is still less than 25 crores. So on quarterly basis, they should submit this particular disclosure. If they have submitted this disclosure, then you don't need to have any annual secretarial compliance report.
Okay, thank you. Now the next question is, how do we deal with non-compliance with respect to delay in disclosure in regulation 13, say half an hour delay, and the company says that this is due to technical reasons. So should we report this or leave it?
So there are two concepts in this, because the thing is, one is so there are strict timelines. And if we don't comply the particular disclosures within those strict guidelines, there are two possible things which might happen. The stock exchanges might raise a query and you may have to pay the penalty. So there is a SOP issued by both the stock exchanges giving the details of all the penalties which are payable if you have a delayed submission. if that particular action has been taken by the stock exchanges, you don't have any option but to report that. But during the audit period, if you understand that there have been delayed submissions beyond a specific time, and within that specific time, you need to upload both the things. So PDF and XBRL, yeah, both the things should be uploaded within the specified time. Then only it is a complete compliance. If you get to know that there are non-compliances or delayed submissions, you need to report it, even if there is no action which has been taken by the stock exchanges. So I think if you come across any non-compliance, you need to report it. And that is the basic purpose of this annual secretarial compliance report. Otherwise, in secretarial audit, for a delay of 45 minutes, you can take a material, it is not material non-compliance, and then you can leave that from secretarial audit. But in annual secretarial compliance report, you will have to compulsorily mention this particular point, and you don't have a leeway to leave anything, even if the penalty is not charged or charged.
Okay. So the next question is with respect to the CFO. If the CFO of a company is appointed after 31st March 2024 and that period exceeds 3 months period with effect from 1st April 2024, then should it be mentioned in the annual secretarial compliance report for the year ended 31st March 2024?
Absolutely, absolutely. If that particular time period is getting exceeded up to 31st March, then you will have to report. But for example, on 15th March, the CFO resigns, then company still has 3 months time to appoint a new CFO. So there is no non-compliance. So I think if the time has elapsed, then you need to report. If there is still a time after 31st March, you don't need to report.
Yeah, so that was exactly the question. So thank you. Next is whether all non-compliances to be reported or only material non-compliances, or which penalty fine was levied. For example, delay in submission of results by 10 minutes, but no notice from. I think we have already discussed this, but maybe you can just repeat it.
I am of the firm view that even if there is no action taken by the BSC or NSC, still, if you come across any non-compliance, you need to report it. One point I missed, you mentioned about technical glitch in uploading the documents. Then you need to take email. So if there is a technical glitch in uploading certain XBRL or certain documents on stock exchanges within time, then the compliance officer has a duty to send an email to that respective stock exchanges. There are designated email IDs given to all the compliance officers, and they need to send an email to that particular email ID saying that there have been a technical issue. That's why we were not able to comply with this particular submission within time. If you come across such email in which the file is also attached, then you can take a lenient view, and in that case, you may mention that there is no non-compliance.
Okay, thank you. Now we have 4 more questions. SDD compliance report is not necessary to be filed in case of annual secretarial compliance is applicable.
Yes.
It's not required.
So the thing is, now we are in the annual secretarial compliance report, we are required to give a certification for Regulation 3, Sub-Regulation 5 and Regulation 3, Sub-Regulation 6, which is in respect of SDD compliances. If annual secretarial compliance report is applicable, then SDD compliance certificate on a quarterly basis is not applicable. There is a clear circular in respect of this by SEBI.
Okay. Thank you. The next question is private company has become high value debt listed company on 25th March 2024. Is it required to submit the annual secretarial compliance report this month, or does it get applicable next year only?
No. If on 31st March 2024 you are a high debt listed entity,
yes,
you are required to submit the annual secretarial
this year only.
Yeah, this year only, in which you may give good disclosure saying that this company was a non-listed entity till 24th March 2024. but you need to provide the details
Yes.
about the compliances for those 6 days.
Okay, thank you. And how many secretarial compliance reports can be signed by a PCS? I think we have already discussed this.
Now it is 10.
Yes, it is 5 plus 5, 10. We have discussed this and has to be peer reviewed.
Yes, compulsory.
Right? Yes. So next, it's a rather long question. Will qualification be based on materiality? For example, one stray case of a delay in reporting by say 1 day, will that have to be stated as a non-compliance of the annual secretarial compliance report? This is number one, question number. Question, should I just there's
Yeah.
one main question and then sub questions under it. So the main question is, will qualification be based on materiality? So the first example is stray case of a delay in reporting by say 1 day. Will that have to be stated as a non-compliance?
Materiality is not mentioned in the annual secretarial compliance report. See, understand the purpose is different. Herein, you need to list down the non-compliances. It might be material or non-material. Yeah, herein you are certifying the company has complied with all the provisions except the following. So, except the following, there can be actions taken by stock exchanges, not taken. All have to be reported, even if it is a delay of 1 day. And nowadays, you must be aware that the regulators are also very, very strict. So even if there is a delay of 10 minutes, they will send you the notice for the penalty. And there is a clear-cut SOP given by the stock exchanges and the SEBI, wherein the penalties also have been now crystallized. So I think there is no chance of not disclosing a non-compliance. You will have to disclose non-compliance even if it is not material.
Okay, thank you. The next question is with respect to preservation of records. Is a sample check sufficient, or what is if there is any methodology to be followed for that?
The first is the archival policy. The company should have the policy in respect of the preservation of records, as well as the archival policy also needs to be there. These are the basic 2 documents which you need to inspect, and otherwise you just need to do a very limited sample check. You don't need to go into the each and every document whether it is preserved or not. It can be policy based. If there is a policy, you can just go through a couple of incidences whether that policy is working well or not. That you need to just ensure. You don't need to do a thorough checking.
Okay, so the next question is with respect to the website, how can we ensure if these were updated within the timeline unless we have a concurrent audit?
Yeah, if you are doing a concurrent audit, definitely I would suggest that you take a print screen every time you check that website so that you are aware about the compliances done within time. If you are not doing a concurrent audit, it can be based on the management representation letter. It can form part of management representation letter. And at the end, you also check the corporate governance report affirmations. In the affirmation, there is one website disclosure affirmation which is being given by the company, in which you will get to know that on that particular link, those particular documents would be found. So I think these 3 things we need to understand for the website.
Okay, thank you. So now we have one specific question, like if the company has complied with all SEBI regulations, but it has some non-compliances under the Companies Act 2013. So what needs to be done? Does this have to be reported in the annual secretarial compliance report?
Yeah, in respect of annual secretarial compliance report, I think 3-4 points are common. One is in respect of secretarial standards. If there is a non-compliance of secretarial standard, that has to be reported in annual secretarial compliance report. There is board evaluation, then disqualification of directors. So those points which are related to SEBI and which are specifically mentioned in the draft report, then those non-compliances of company law will have to be mentioned in annual secretarial compliance report. Otherwise, if there is a non-compliance of, say, for example, if the DR 12 is not filed within time, that not come in the annual secretarial compliance.
Only things that are within the purview of the SEBI LOTR. I mean, outside the purview of the...
Plus the points which are specifically required.
Yes, yes. Okay, so next is whether the board has to appoint a PCS for issuing the annual secretarial compliance report, like it is done with secretarial auditor.
No, it can be by way of an exchange of letters. I think you can go through the auditing standards. The very well drafted auditing standards have been issued by our institute. So there is a requirement of engagement letter, exchange of letters. And if we follow that particular auditing standard, then it is fine, even if you get appointed through a EL, engagement letter.
Okay, so this is my specific question with respect to this one. So don't you think that this is a gray area where, like maybe it may be misutilized, and there may be a conflict of interest in appointing a secretary, a person PCS for annual secretary compliance. So something should be done, don't you think?
I personally think that even the secretarial auditor has to be appointed in line with statutory auditor
Yes,
by.
in the general meeting.
Yeah, so that is the best way to handle it.
Yeah.
So there are few things on which we still need to work upon. Even the secretarial auditor appointment by board.
Yeah, doesn't make sense. Yes, actually.
Yeah. So we should be at par with other auditors. So I think at least the
Yes.
cost auditors remuneration is getting ratified at an annual general meeting. But nothing about secretarial audit.
Yes, for us, nothing is being, either appointment nor ratification of the remuneration. Nothing has been done. But this has been a cause for concern for a long time, I guess. And like,
So there are two views, Rupanjan. I would like to definitely tell you the second view also, because few of the practicing CS are of the view that if that appointment by the shareholders come into picture, then we will be also required to have the rotation of the auditors. So
yes,
so,
yes, that we are enjoying. That part we are really enjoying.
yeah, so it's a two-way sword. So few people
I have heard many chartered accountants say this कि नहीं आपका तो rotation नहीं है. So enjoy.
Yeah,
so that is true.
So I think if appointment comes from shareholders, then definitely this rotation will also come. So it's again, whatever comes, we will follow. That's
yeah, exactly. But anyways, for this, I think there should be some structure about appointment of the PCS. There should be some guidelines. That is my personal feeling. So, so far, these were the questions. So, if you have, other points left out which we have not answered and which you have not yet deliberated, so maybe you can continue with that.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead. So this is up to the basic concept. Now we'll get into the real certificate. Now we will look at the certificate. What are the contents? What are the things which you should look into? That also I'll just cover in this particular presentation. So the main acts which are required to be looked into are SEBI and SCRA. So these laws have been specifically mentioned in the annual secretarial compliance report. You need to look at all the rules, regulations, guidelines, and circulars thereunder. So all rules, regulations, guidelines, and circulars issued under SEBI and SCRA will have to be checked, and you will have to certify whether the company or the entity has complied with these laws, rules, regulations, and guidelines and circulars. So this is the basic concept of this annual secretarial compliance report. In this, most of the times, our company secretaries fail to look into two important points. One is whether the 75% of promoter shareholding is there, or if it is so that the maximum limit on the promoter shareholding has been maintained or not. Second, whether the entire share capital of promoter is in demat mode or not. So these 2 points are mostly missed. So I think we need to look into these points specifically when we talk about SCRA and SEBI related regulations. Definitely we will look into the specific laws. So in this, the specific regulations which have been mentioned are ICDR, LODR, SAST, buyback, ESOP, NCS, insider trading, and any other. So this is just a illustrative list which has been given by our institute as well as SEBI, but all rules and regulations which are applicable to a particular listed entity under SEBI laws will have to be considered for annual secretarial compliance report. So there might be an entity which is also doing a merchant banking business, So the SEBI laws which are applicable for merchant bankers will also come in annual secretarial compliance report. So it is also very wide. So only the rules, regulations, guidelines, and circulars under SEBI and SCRA will come into picture. All applicable regulations will have to be mentioned, and then you will have to tell that whether the compliance of all these regulations have been done or not. If something is not applicable at all, you can mention that, okay, this NCS, I have never issued any debt security, so non-convertible security, so it is not applicable. So you can very well take that particular stand. Yeah. So I think, Rupanjana, there are a few more questions, as you mentioned.
Yes, there are few more questions. So
Sure.
I'll just take them one by one.
Sure.
The first one is quite a long one. In case of non-applicability of annual secretarial compliance report under Regulation 15, it says that any listed entity whose paid up capital is not exceeding 10 crores and the net worth is not beyond 25 crores, whether in case a company is having paid up capital of more than 10 crores but not net worth less than 25 crores, whether the annual secretarial compliance report is required, and stock exchange has sent notice for non-compliance for companies who has crossed any one criteria regarding Regulation 15.
It's absolutely clear from Regulation 15. The word used in between the capital and net worth is and. So if both the things are below limit, then it is not applicable. If any one is crossing the limit, then this is applicable 100%. And not only this, but all the provisions in respect of Regulation 15 to 27 will become applicable to you.
Great. Okay, thank you. So next is, what about non-compliances with respect to respective regulators? For example, IRDA compliances and by insurance companies, and should they find place in the annual secretarial compliance report?
Unluckily, not in this annual secretarial compliance report. But if IRDA comes out with their own annual secretarial compliance report, definitely will be the first choice for company secretaries would be the first choice.
Yeah. So basically, the more regulators choose us to issue annual secretarial compliance report, the better for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the new council, like you
the
all,
initiative is in that direction. Under the leadership of the president, vice president, immediate past president. So we are also keeping our fingers crossed.
Yes, yes, and I think you all are doing very good job in recognizing various different areas, not only the MCA related things, but also different areas recognition.
So moving a bit away from the core area that has been, regarded as the core area for company secretaries, only company law. Like it has taken years to understand कि खाली company law ही नहीं है. There are others also.
Absolutely.
And
so I can share it with you. In 2021-22, we started this particular concept of CS a preferred professional. So I remember that particular thing, wherein we should be preferred by different regulators to give the certificates, to give the clear assurances. So
and I think we have sort of reached that position. Slowly we are going to that, companies are, different regulators are understanding the importance of having a company secretary, not just the, statutory prescribed limit of 10 crores. Many companies, innumerable companies are appointing a company secretary, even if they have not, they are not falling the threshold. So that is a good part. And as the profession grows with more members, I think we actually need to spread and we'll have recognition under other regulators. So next one is it was found that audit committee, while granting ominous approval for RPT, mandatory contents of SEBI circular dated November 22, 2021, did not place before the committee only the name, relationship, amount of the transactions are placed. Okay, the mandatory contents are not placed, only the name, relationship, and amount of transaction are placed. Rest contents of the circular, such percentage of consolidation, turnover, etc., have not been placed. So should it be critical non-compliance, or should we say it is a non-compliance?
See, I think for omnibus approval, it is just the party wise details you need to just put it before the audit committee, and audit committee can approve that. But for a related party transaction beyond 1 crore, or if it is not omnibus, then definitely all the details will have to be taken into the audit committee. And see, nowadays you must understand that audit, only the independent director from audit committees, they are actually approving the related party transactions. So if there is a some non-disclosure to independent directors, then that becomes a very important non-compliance. So I think if you come across such a situation wherein the entire disclosure is not given to audit committee, and audit committee at the end took the decision, then definitely there is a question mark on the governance. So I think this point should be very well taken in the annual secretarial compliance report as a non-compliance. Yeah. So I think Rupanjana is having some.
Okay. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
See
So thank you about the earlier one. And
Yeah.
the next one is, if during the year, say in financial year 2023-24, in the month of October, the paid up capital increases from 7 crore to 15 crore, do the company need to submit the secretarial compliance report for the year ending 31st March 2024, as the paid up capital is breaching the threshold limit?
So whenever your capital or net worth on each quarter end, you need to ascertain that particular thing. If it is going beyond the threshold, any one thing is going beyond the threshold on a quarterly basis, then the provisions of regulation 15 to 27 will become applicable. So on 31st March, you will have to submit the annual secretarial compliance report for the entire year, in which you can give a disclaimer that up to this particular level, it was not applicable. After that, this is applicable.
Okay. Thank you. And next is, as per annual secretarial compliance report, do we need to comment on performance evaluation made by the company at the start of the financial year? However, the company has done performance evaluation in the last board meeting, which is in January, February. What reporting should be made by the PCS?
See, basically, it is not the event of evaluation of board which we need to mention. It is the process, whether the company has a robust system of evaluation of the board is more important. So our focus should be on the
Procedure.
event, but on the system, whether the company has a proper system of board evaluation. And I think that's a very good area for practice for a practicing company secretary, wherein he can act as a evaluator.
Evaluator, yes.
So that's a very good area for practice for PCS.
In case a private company acting as an investment managing company to an InvIT trust, then the company is required to submit annual compliance report on behalf of InvIT.
No, I'm not aware about this. Sorry. This particular, and I have never come across.
Maybe, whoever has sent this query, maybe, you can write it a little more detail and maybe send it to us. We can answer later. Then the next question is, how many years website disclosure should be maintained by unlisted public companies?
Unlisted public companies?
Yeah.
This is under Companies Act. So under Companies Act, there are a few thresholds which are mentioned. Otherwise, you can go for 8 years. If there is no specific
8 years is the standard. But that is, I think, the mandatory limit. Companies do keep it more than 8 years. So, yeah. The question is, should be is minimum is 8 years, right? So that's it as for now, like no more questions yet. So maybe you can continue.
Sure. Thank you, Rupanjana. So now we will look at few instances about different set of regulations. I just during my audits, during my discussion with different company secretaries, I came across that there might be few misses in compliances in SEBI LODR or other compliances. So I think the best option to do a SEBI LODR checking is a preparation of quarterly compliances, half-yearly compliances, and annual compliances checklist. The checklist is readily available on NSC website. I have seen that, and it's a very well prepared checklist by the stock exchanges themselves. They have also provided certain formats for submission. So I think you can use that particular compliance checklist. After that, you need to do a thorough checking of the minutes so that you will get to know that what are the events which took place other than the compliances, because these quarterly, half yearly and annual compliances are not event based compliances. There would be two type of compliances. One is timely compliances based on quarter, half year or annual, which you can check it from the checklist on the stock exchanges, or you can prepare your own checklist as may be applicable to your own entity. And on that basis, you can do a checklist based checking. And if that is in compliance, then you can rest assured that half of the things are gone correctly. Secondly, there would be few event based compliances which are required, especially regulation 30. So if time permits, at the end we will discuss about regulation 30 very specifically, because there are a lot of questions in the minds of people about regulation 30. And actually I think there needs to be some representation, may not be from the institute but from some like industrial associations, that the materiality concept should be brought in the disclosure of regulation 30. So that we will disclose it, discuss it later. If the time permits, I have a specific slide on regulation 30 also. So at that point, we will discuss that. But event-based compliances will have to also check. So you need to go through the minutes, all the notices, and you will get to know that what events happened in the company. And then you prepare the further checklist on event-based. And if everything is within time, then you can rely on that and give the clear certificate. Few points of concern which I have seen in last year. So this year, 23-24, few points which have come under discussions. So these are the points for concern. So related party transactions, again, this is the format for related party transaction disclosure under regulation 23(9) have undergone a lot of change. So I think you should be aware about what is the format under which the companies are disclosing the related party transaction. There is opening balance, closing balance, and the time limit for this related party transaction, and it is in XBRL mode. It is on the same day of your meeting. So many of the times I have seen people uploading the documents next day and receiving the notice from the stock exchanges about non-submission of RPT transactions. This is on a half-yearly basis, but we'll have to be very careful in this compliances. Then XBRL and PDF filing, the compliance will be only treated as complied with if both kind of submissions wherever required are submitted. So in certain cases only PDF is required, then PDF filing is done, it is treated as complied with. But if PDF and XBRL both are required, then the compliance will be complete only on submission of both the documents. Then these PDF documents have to be machine readable. Many of the times companies file the documents which are not machine readable, and if they are not machine readable, they will receive a query from the stock exchanges. So we'll have to be very careful. Use of digital signature. Now certain kinds of disclosures, there is a circular issued by both the stock exchanges saying that certain kind of disclosures will have to be under the digital signature. Certain disclosures will have to be under the physical signature of the compliance officer or a managing director. So we'll have to analyze these things properly and then submit it. There are different timelines under LODR. The timeline ranges from 30 minutes, 12 hours, 24 hours, 2 days, 7 days, 8 days. So we'll have to prepare that checklist very crystal clear for a particular year. So don't go by the checklist prepared in the last year. That's what I would suggest all the PCS. Every time in the month of March or April, start preparing your own checklist for this particular financial year, for this particular company, because there might be few exemptions which would be available for certain kind of companies. So you need to prepare the checklist company-wise and year-wise specifically. Next point of concern is about strict compliances, as I mentioned, I have seen one case wherein a delay of 10 minutes in RPT, so it was submitted after 12 o'clock. So it became technically the next day. So at night, it was submitted after 12 o'clock. So technically, it became next day, and the company was required to pay the penalty of 5,000 rupees. So stock exchanges have become very strict. You need to go through all the points which are there, such as such penalty charged by the stock exchanges. Also understand that now stock exchange, while imposing a penalty, will specifically write a point that you need to disclose this to the board, as well as you need to disseminate this information on the stock exchanges. So under regulation 30, once you receive any penalty order from the stock exchanges, it has to be again reported under regulation 30 that we are subject to this penalty. We have received this order for penalty. So we'll have to be very careful. The compliances have become strict, and you need to jot down the sequence of events in that case. Then materiality of event and disclosure, as we have already discussed this particular point. Annual secretarial compliance report doesn't talk about materiality much. So if there is a non-compliance, a delayed filing, if penalty charged or not charged, we'll have to report. Regulation 30, we'll discuss it in detail later on, and it's very, very important. Financial statements, in respect of financial statements for this particular year, there are additional 2 disclosures which are required. One is financial statement in PDF, that is under results, then in XBRL, then any ADI related compliances. Even if you are not a large entity, still you will be required to give that disclosure along with the financial statements, and also the unmodified opinion or the impact of the qualifications will have to be uploaded in the XBRL mode. So last year there was a separate circular. Now it has become part of your financial statement submission. So make sure that these compliances are also done by the company, and it is forming part of your checklist. Then last year, annual secretarial compliance report, the time limit for last year, that is 31st March 2023 for XBRL filing was 30th June. So if they have submitted within 30th June, there will not be a non-compliance. But this year, the important point is, if there are any remarks in last year's annual secretarial compliance report, you are required to give those remarks as well as your observations, how the company has complied with previous year's non-compliances. So both the things will have to be covered in your annual secretarial compliance report. Then, as I mentioned earlier, quarterly corporate governance report and its affirmations, you need to go through. If company has accepted some non-compliance, you should also mention that non-compliance in your annual secretarial compliance report. It is very, very clear. Don't try to give a clean report. If company is making themselves safe, then you also make yourself safe and properly certify this particular point. So you need to go through all the quarters corporate governance report. That will be very, very important for issuing annual secretarial compliance report. Then complete board meeting minutes, as we have already discussed. When in doubt, disclose. This is the a principle which is followed everywhere in most of the listed companies. Yeah, whenever you are in doubt whether to disclose or not, it's better to disclose. So make sure that board is aware about this principle and you are making a proper disclosures. If not, then definitely you need to back up with the regulations. If regulations is clear that you are not required to disclose, then there will not be a non-compliance. Then master circulars are to be referred. So lot of changes happened in July 2023. You all are aware about the agreements. You all are aware about the related party transactions. You all are aware about the regulation 30 changes which happened in July 2023. So this year annual secretarial compliance report is going to be very crucial and important because a lot of things have actually changed in 23-24. So you need to take a look at it very carefully. Next one, which provisions of LODR are applicable? So there are a few exemptions. So PSU are exempt from certain provisions of LODR. Certain class of companies like top 2000, so from top 1000 to top 2000 are exempt from certain provisions of LODR. So all these exemption you should be aware, and on that basis you should look at the compliance or non-compliance. Sometimes what happens in one of the case, I have seen that in PSU sector enterprise, there is no requirement of taking the approval of shareholders within 3 months. But I have seen one report in which there was a mention about that the compliance was not done, but they were exempt. So ideally, it should not be forming part of the report, but it happens sometimes because the laws are changing. So you need to give the understanding about what are the exemptions available to that particular company. If they are exempt, then there will not be a non-compliance. So applicability is very, very important. Like risk management committee may not be applicable to a certain class of companies. In that case, you can you don't need to mention that that non-compliance, that is about risk management. Further, within certain days, there are few document disclosures within which are required to be done within certain days. So at few points in LODR, it is mentioned working days. In few points, it is mentioned days. So that we need to be very careful about. We need to read that LODR carefully. Wherever there is a working day, you need to leave those Saturdays, Sundays, and I think this question is now very, very clear. What is working day? Working day is the day on which the stock exchanges are working. So it has nothing to do with the business hours of the company. It has nothing to do with the national holidays. It is all about the working of stock exchanges. So you need to have a clear-cut understanding about these points when we are talking about LODR. So on LODR, any questions? I think there would not be any questions because we already have covered so many. So I'll just complete this and then we will go to the further questions. So next is ICDR. This will be applicable mostly in cases wherein there have been certain issue of shares, securities, debentures, or other kind of securities. So point of concern here are like, can we rely on the other certificates? Definitely the merchant banker certificate or the statutory auditor certificate, which has been issued for the purpose of different issue of securities. We can definitely rely upon that. And if you want, you can definitely give a disclaimer saying that this particular compliance we have checked, and we have also relied on the certificate issued by the merchant banker and statutory auditors. I don't see any problem in not relying on these other professional certificates, not on the certificate issued by the management, but other third-party professionals, definitely we can rely. Next one is approval from the regulator. You can definitely take it as a conclusive proof of all the compliances, because many of the times what happens when the companies apply for in principle approvals and the final approvals for preferential issue, the stock exchanges might come out with certain queries, and those queries might end up in you issuing some corrigendums and you issuing certain newspaper advertisements and corrections. You don't need to get into all these points. The final approval from regulator in respect of the in principle approval or the final listing approval, you can take it as a conclusive proof of the entire issue of those securities. So issue related documents you can definitely go through, but the conclusive proof would be the final approval of regulator. Then general corporate purposes disclosure. I think these are the few points which I came across in certain issues. Debt listed, then credit rating, whether they have obtained it within 12 months or every 12 months they are required to take those credit ratings. Those credit ratings will have to be informed to the stock exchanges. So once you come across one issue of securities, you need to check all the ICDR points and then comply with that. So any deviation from the usage, any deviation from the purpose of issue, if there are deviations, then quarterly it has to be reported. So you need to actually understand that process and check the compliances of that. There can be right issue, preferential issue, QIPs, the basic IPO, the main IPO, the listing. All these things will have to be checked under ICDR. So I think the ICDR compliances you can check through a compliance checklist again. Very well drafted compliance checklist have been issued by our institute. It is a guidance note on annual secretarial compliance report, wherein we have like institute has collated a lot of points in respect of these compliances, as well as the secretarial audit manual, which has been also prepared by Auditing Standard Board. So that also will be helpful for all of you. Next one is SAST. Definitely for checking of SAST disclosures, you all must be aware that regulation 30 disclosures by the promoter or person acting in concern is no more required. So what you would be doing is you would be checking the changes in shareholding pattern and whether the SAST requirements were there or not. You will definitely check. Then there would be some exempted acquisitions like promoter inter se transfer, or there might be close relative transfer. In all those situations, you will have to check all the compliances under regulation 10 and whether the required submissions were given to the stock exchanges, whether the necessary, if the amount is crossing a particular limit, then whether the regulation 10(7) also has been submitted to the SEBI along with the fees. All these things you need to go through and then comply. The only challenge which is being faced in this SAST is, like LODR, there is no login system in SAST. In SAST, there is compliance through your email. So promoters are supposed to send emails for getting this SAST compliances. So you need to have the copies of those emails with you. So the disclosures are usually on emails. Recently, I came across this particular point in respect of 31(4) compliance, wherein now the promoters and person acting in concern are required to disclose to the stock exchanges whether their shares are encumbered, whether there is a pledge, and if there is no change, then they will have to give a disclosure that there is no change. But if there is no pledge at all, few companies were taking a stand that 31(4) is not applicable, so they were not submitting any disclosure under 31 sub-regulation 4. But now many of the companies have received notices from stock exchange about this non-submission. So I think if there are no pledge, no change, then there has to be one disclosure from under 31(4) saying that there has been no pledge and no disclosure which was required. So that declaration we need to submit. So this is all about SAST compliances. I'm not going through each and every point of SAST or LODR. I've tried to just compile those points wherein we need to focus more and understand it in a better manner. So I'm not going into the details of each and every compliance because those checklists are available. It is all checklist based compliances, so compliance checking. So I'm not going into that. Insider trading, definitely the SDD software, lot of questions are there in respect of SDD software. When to create that project is something which is very, very important and I don't know how to say this, but nobody is 100% sure that when that particular project has to be created. I'll give you one example. So, for example, a company enters into some transaction which is a price sensitive information. At what point of time the project will have to be created is the question, because the thing is, when there is a discussion, there might be a discussion that I will go for this particular transaction, but nothing is crystallized. If nothing is crystallized, then you don't need to create that particular project in SDD software. This is one view which has been taken by a lot of companies. many of the companies are creating that project at the time of board meeting when the things are crystallized and now it is pending for the approval of the board. So at that point of time, usually the companies are creating project, and I think that is a correct view. But sometimes the regulators are taking a different view that even the discussions have to be created in a SDD software. So I think there is a requirement of having a clarity about when to create project, when the information becomes price sensitive information, because just a discussion with any party may not make it a price sensitive information unless something is crystallized. So that needs to be clarified by the regulators. It is not 100% sure that so that remains a challenge when we talk about insider trading. You also need to check about off-market transactions if there are any amongst the promoters or outside promoters which are triggering this insider trading. You need to be very careful about it. Yeah, very difficult to check because you will be having only the PAN number of designated persons or connected persons. If they have given some information to third party, it's very difficult to track as a certifying professional. Very difficult. So MR will definitely help. Yeah, and insider trading regulations like this SDD software will definitely help you. Now the PANs are also freeze for that particular trading window, so less burden on you to check the trading of shares by the insiders. But still, there are a lot of things under insider trading. So this needs to be checked thoroughly. Effective system of compliance need to be checked. So there will be a code of conduct, there will be a policy, and whether accordingly the insider tradings are dealt with, whether the pre-clearance of the compliance officer has been taken, if there is a contra trade, whether there were few contra trades which took place, and whether that becomes a non-compliance, and non-compliance of that particular thing also will have to be reported under the listing center. So and what actions you have taken. So that has to be reported. If that is not reported, then that will be treated as a non-compliance of both LODR as well as insider trading. So we'll have to be very careful about it. Buyback, NCD issue, ESOP, delisting, sweat equity issue are special events. Whenever there are special events, you will have to go through the checklist. And again, as I said, that government approval will become a conclusive evidence, and you can rely on that, and you can take a management representation letter in respect of these particular special events and give your annual secretarial compliance report. So this is all about various regulations under SEBI, which are illustrative in nature. There might be few others which might come in, but as of now, we will just restrict ourselves to this. While doing a annual secretarial compliance report checking, you also take a list of policies, and now there are few policies which are mandatorily required to be kept before the board and amended. So that also you need to check whether the company has amended those within a prescribed time limit. As already discussed about website disclosures, you need to take print screens or you need to take a management representation letter. Yeah, so this is all about different regulations which you need to give specific compliance or non-compliances. So Rupanjana, if there are any questions, we will deal with it, and then
yes, we have received 8 more questions.
Okay.
So and let me also tell you, we have 15,422. 400 plus members have joined. So today they are live. So the first question is annual secretarial compliance report versus XBRL released by stock exchanges are very contradictory. Please guide how to input the data in XBRL based on annual secretarial compliance report issued by a CS.
See, so the role of practicing company secretary is to issue that annual secretarial compliance report. Now, so I'm just talking from a perspective of a PCS. So I will issue a certificate and give it to the compliance officer, and now it is his duty to convert it into a XBRL mode. If he is facing any of the difficulties, he can write to those specific email IDs which are mentioned. So we still have good amount of time. So if you have come across any discrepancy, I have not come across any discrepancy as of now, because after I have done filing a few of the annual secretarial compliance reports, but I have not come across any discrepancy. If you have come across any discrepancy, definitely that XBRL related email ID, which has been provided by both the stock exchanges, you can write to them.
Okay, thank you. Is it mandatory to issue annual compliance report 2024 in new format? If yes, from what date?
See, this new format, I think if you go through the old format and new format, there is only one major change which has been done. This new format is a recommended format by our institute, not yet what I can say, not yet adopted by SEBI in toto. So I think other than the year of some regulation change, the major change which I have seen in the format is the change in respect of specific mention about resignation of auditor. If there is a resignation of auditor, there are few compliances required under that particular circular issued by SEBI. And in that circular, the last line specifically stated that the details of this compliance need to be mentioned in annual secretarial compliance report. Therefore, this point has been added in the new format. If you have issued a certificate before 10th May, then it would definitely be in old format. But if you are issuing the certificate after 10th May, ideally you can use the new format.
Okay.
There will not be any problem if you miss the new format and there is a general statement at the end saying that the company has complied with all circulars, which will also include the circular issued by SEBI in respect of resignation of auditor.
Okay, thank you. And the next is with respect to the omnibus approval. Are the only independent directors are only required to approve the omnibus approval? This is with respect to Regulation 23(2), which provides, like only independent directors are required to approve RPTs. So here also, whether this omnibus approval, this is to be done by the independent directors, right?
So this is all about following the law in words and spirit. So I think RPTs are required to be approved by independent directors, even though approval has to be approved only by the independent directors.
Yes, yes. So next question is, since IRDA has prescribed format of compliance report, and if we find any non-compliance therein, what is the harm in reporting that in annual secretarial compliance report?
So this is a regulator based, so there is no harm. So you can mention all the non-compliances of company law in this, but the regulators' viewers, they want a non-compliance report. So they need an action point for themselves. So SEBI is not interested in your non-compliance in IRDA or company law. They are, so this is a focus certificate. So I don't think we should mix this up, and because see, slowly, as we were talking, we might have 15 different regulators asking for 15 different certificates. Yes. So if we club everything together, it will be again messed up. Because this is a focus certificate for SEBI. Let's put all the SEBI related points here. If IRDA has come out with certain certificate, then definitely in IRDA, you mention only those which are related to them. Same is with labor law, same is with competition commission, and so on and so forth. So I think.
So actually, I think yes. Well, I mean, we can always do it. There is no restriction as such, but this will actually make our own work easier if we just stick to the non-compliances with respect to SEBI and OTR and all that.
Yeah, and regulator is also not interested in other. So
it's a redundant information for them.
Yeah, sure.
So next question is whether the items which are required to be disclosed after 30 minutes of the conclusion of the board meeting can be passed through the resolution by circulation, which are not covered under section 79(3).
Yes, you can pass it by circular resolution, and those circular resolutions will also have to be reported. So for example, appointment of director. If you do appointment of director via circular resolution, you'll have to report it once the approval of the board is received within the specified time under change of directors notification.
Great. So next question is, if a company has converted from private limited to public limited company during the month of March 2024, the company crossed the threshold limit, is it required for the company to obtain compliance report for financial year 23-24?
But this is only for the listed entities, not
Yes.
for the normal private to public.
Yes.
I don't see that a company in March getting converted from private to public and also
getting listed. No,
it seems very
not possible. I mean, that is a utopian thought, I think I would say. So next question is, for private companies having ISIN as on 31st March 2024, is it mandatorily required to file a PAS 6 for half year ended March?
Yeah, so this is not a topic, but definitely I will.
Yeah. Because you are such a great speaker, and people want to know more from you.
No. Actually, if you look at the rule 9A read with rule 9B, that is in respect of the dematerialization of shares. If you look at those rules, the sub rule 4 to 10 are mutatis mutandis applicable to private limited company. So sub rule 4 to 10 of public limited company will be applicable to even private limited companies. So if you have a ISIN on 31st March 24, yeah, then you are required to file PAS 6. It is mandatory.
Okay, thank you. And then we have two more questions. The penultimate one is, can annual compliance certificate be signed by affixing DSC?
Yeah, so I think Information Technology Act Section 4 and 5 has an overriding power over all acts in India. So you can sign it with digital signature. Make sure that your UDIN and the time of your affixing of digital signature match. Otherwise, you will be in trouble.
Yeah. So Digital India.
It's definitely it is.
Yeah. So the final question is, certificate required in filing of form FCGPR not taken from peer-reviewed PCS, and whether it is required to be reported in the annual secretarial compliance report.
Nothing, not required.
Yeah, again, FCGPR is under a different regulator, so
nothing to be done.
Yeah. So that's it. I think we have addressed almost 30 questions. And at the end, I would again mention, for those who are present, we had close to 16,000 participants, which is definitely your charisma, our dynamic young president, past president. And it's always a pleasure listening to you. So if you want to make any concluding remark, maybe we can go ahead.
I have not yet concluded my presentation. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
10, 15.
Then we can carry on with the rest.
Sorry, yeah. So I have a few points which I need to also mention here. Yeah. So for reporting of non-compliances, there is a complete table which has been given. So you come across any non-compliance, you need to mention the compliance requirement, that is the regulation and the details of compliance requirement, regulation number, circular number, specific, what are the deviation, what has happened. So why you think that there is a non-compliance, that you need to mention. Whether any action has been taken by stock exchange or SEBI, you need to mention it in a separate column. If there is no action taken, you can mention no action taken. If there is a type of action, so whether penalty was levied, whether penalty was waived, whether only the specific what advisory was given, all these things you need to give it in type of action taken. Details of violation, so what was the violation? If there is a fine which has been charged, what was the amount and how it was paid? If you have any observations on that, definitely you can mention. If on that particular point, if management has got a specific response, then management response should also form part of this certificate itself. So if the burden is on you now to take responses from the management and put it in this particular table itself. So understand that the non-compliances of annual secretarial compliance report need not be answered in director's report. So that question is very, very clear now. here in this report itself, if there are management responses, like management might mention that this is not a material non-compliance. So you may mention that in your that particular column, and you can give the final remarks in this respect. So this is the table in which you need to report the non-compliances. And again, for the reporting of previous year's non-compliances, what are the remedial actions taken? And if there are any comments that this is a continuous non-compliance, then you'll have to mention that in next table. So there are annexures which you can definitely attach. After this, you need to give specific compliance status in respect of these points. We have discussed many of them, but we'll just run through it. Secretarial standards, as you are aware, SS1, SS2, they were modified recently. So all amended secretarial standards, whether they were followed in true spirit and words, all these things will have to report it here in secretarial standard compliance status. You will normally it will be yes on the basis of your assessment. If you are happy with the compliance of secretarial standard, you will mention that. It includes SS1, SS2, which are mandatory, SS3 regarding dividend and director's report, SS4. So those are not mandatory secretarial standards. So you can just check the SS1, SS2 for the time being. Adoption and timely updation of policies, this we have already discussed. So you need to give a compliance status of this particular point specifically. So this is a specific report which you need to give in the annual secretarial compliance report. Maintenance and disclosure on website. Again, it will be based on management representation letter, as we have already discussed. Details related to subsidiaries of listed entities, whether the company has material subsidiary and whether the necessary disclosures of material subsidiary has been given or not, will have to be specifically mentioned by the certifying professional, that is the practicing company secretary, in annual secretarial compliance report. Then preservation of documents, again, as we mentioned, different policies for preservation as well as archival policy, whether they are in place, and this can be a test check basis. You can check the preservations. Performance evaluation, definitely, as we discussed, that this is also very, very important concept under Companies Act. If the evaluation of board has been conducted, again, I believe that company secretaries are the only professionals who can work on performance evaluation. They need to create their own software, they need to create their own system and imbibe that system into the different companies. And at the end, you should present the board evaluation in front of NRC. That is the dream project for any company secretary. So that will fetch a good attention of the board of directors for a PCS. Then related party transaction, again, RPT has undergone a lot of changes. It is not RPT of the company itself. It is RPT of the company, RPT of subsidiary companies with related parties, RPT wherein the listed entity is not part of. All this will have to be, so there has to be a detailed checklist with all kinds of percentages mentioned in there, and what is material, what is non-material related party transaction, whether the necessary approval has been taken, company law vis-a-vis LODR. So very complex point of related party transaction you are supposed to certify. So make sure that it is matching with your ledgers, as well as it is matching with your MBP1 submitted by the directors, and it is matching with your AS18 or Ind AS 24 document which has been prepared by the company, and all related party transactions are covered. You must be aware that related party transaction definition has undergone a change for LODR. Yeah, it is not the same as it is for Companies Act. So even loan given, loan taken can be treated as a related party transaction. You make sure that you are going through each and every kind of transaction which is mentioned in LODR and not only the Companies Act. Disclosure of events and information under Regulation 30, one of the most difficult part of this certification, because you would be certifying after 31st March and there will be n number of events which would have taken place, and Regulation 30 was required to be submitted within the specified time limit of 12 months or 12 hours or 24 hours. I'll give you a very simple example. I was going through one press note wherein Yes Bank has disclosed one. I'm just taking name because I came across it through a press note. Yes Bank has disclosed the penalty amount of 150 paid by them under Regulation 30. So this kind of in-depth system needs to be there in the company so that any order passed by any regulatory authority. So it doesn't talk about only specific regulatory authority. If the company, its subsidiary, its promoters have received any order, I'm just giving you one example of how difficult it is to comply with Regulation 80 is if you receive any order of any penalty or even a warning letter, any of these people receive it in respect of company, that has to be reported within 24 hours. And for that, you need to have a robust system. The board should be aware about this. And I think this is one of the most important checking which you need to do before issuing the annual secretarial compliance report. Prohibition of insider trading. This is all about SDD compliance. We have already discussed this. Action taken by SEBI or stock exchanges, if any, if there are any actions taken by SEBI or stock exchanges, they will have to be specifically mentioned here. And if there are no actions, you may mention there are no actions. Designation of statutory auditors and the compliance of that circular will have to be mentioned specifically, and the compliance status will have to be mentioned. So for the company as well as for its material subsidiary. So this is the additional point which has been added this year under the new format. So we'll have to follow this new format for this particular point. Additional non-compliances, if you come across, then you can mention in this particular point. Additional means in addition to the points which are mentioned above. So all LODR non-compliances, ICDR, you have already mentioned above. So if you come across any non-compliance which you want to mention here, then you can mention it here. Plus the disqualification of directors is one more point which you need to mention in the specific compliances. And you will also have to issue a separate certificate for non-disqualification of directors. So that's a different certificate altogether. So this is all about annual secretarial compliance report. I had put in few slides for Regulation 30, but I think it is 4:52. So I think we should have more time if there are any question answers.
We have one question, just one question that has arrived now.
Yeah.
So events occurring after the end of financial year have to be taken into account for the issue of certificate.
In this certificate, I don't think that there is a specific requirement of checking the events after the 31st March. You can stick to the review period. So there is a mention about the term review period in the certificate itself. So it is up to 31st March.
Okay, so that's it. So if you want to conclude, we can. It has been.
I always believe that if we do very well in certifying this annual secretarial compliance report, the other regulators will be also happy to give us such recognitions. So I think we as practicing company secretaries should put our foot down and do this audit really well, so that we are recognized by others also, and we will be able to expand our horizons in different certification segments. So, and see, I think with ESG coming into picture and sustainability assurance certificates are something which we are looking at. Even the institute is working on that. And we should be the people who should be approached by corporates for issuing such assurance certificates. So if we do our certifications very well, we should not we should not hide away from certifications. We do have to have good robust system of checklists, and now with peer review being compulsory, I think the quality of certification would definitely go up. And if we do it with full confidence and with full commitment, then definitely there are a lot of other certifications, other avenues which are going to get open for our practicing professionals. So That's it from my side. Thank you,
So I think
Rupanjana.
here I would like to
Yeah.
mention here, since you are saying yes, if we do it well, then other regulators will also, recognize us for their secretarial report. But then, there is a role of every individual PCS who is, giving the certificate, right? Because it's a collective responsibility to issue a very good certificate so that, we keep on getting new avenues and we keep getting recognized. I think that is very important.
Yes. And last but not the least, thank you, Rupanjana, for such a wonderful moderation. I think we could interact as if we are sitting across the table. So thanks
Exactly,
a lot.
exactly. Yeah, I also had the same feeling. So thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to listen from you. You are full of knowledge, and the way you deliberate, the way you articulate, it's a great learning for our members. Age is no matter. Age is just a number, and you can keep learning. So I think all members, we all have to learn, keep learning from you, the way you deliberate and all that. So thanks again for addressing the members. And so we would like to now say goodbye from today's webinar. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Bye bye.